What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name's Paul Brettel. Today, we're here to discuss my 6 reasons to be optimistic about this year's Green Bay Packers team. And conversely, we'll have another video coming out in the next day or two talking about my reasons for concern. But let's start with the good. However, before we dive into that, hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. You can find all my work over at Packers Wire. Give me a follow on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. So now, like I said, let's dive into my 6 reasons that we should be optimistic about the Green Bay Packers upcoming season. Let's start with the first one, the trenches on both sides of the ball, the offensive line and the defensive line. The interior defensive line, as I've talked about on here before, they looked much faster this summer, able to penetrate gaps a lot more easily. They were creating consistent push in both the run and passing games, and also this unit's ability to flow sideline to sideline, either in pursuit of the quarterback or if the ball carrier was trying to bounce outside. I was very, very much impressed with that group this summer. Edge rusher depth. Matt LaFleur said it best. This group is loaded right now, which is a far cry from the overall outlook of this position group this time a year ago. Edge rusher depth last summer was one of my biggest concerns about this Packers defense heading into the 2022 season, but now this group looks very much different. Obviously, Rashan Gary is going to be coming back, which is a massive, massive help that can't be overstated. But J.J. Enagbare absolutely looks like he's taking a big jump forward in year 2. Justin Hollins has had a full off season in this defense. They've added Lucas Van Ness. They've added Brenton Cox to the mix. And success for this defense as a whole begins up front. They have to be better, both in terms of getting after the quarterback. This is a defense that ranked 22nd in pressures generated last season. Again, of course, they greatly missed Rashan Gary, but they also have to be much, much better against the run. They ranked 28th in yards per carry allowed, 31st in run defense by Football Outsiders DVOA metric, and that's where any success is going to begin. They have to slow the run, put the offense in predictable passing situations, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7s, and then it's going to give this pass rush the opportunity to pin its ears back and go get after the quarterback. It's going to allow the secondary, specifically the cornerbacks, which I'll get to here in a few minutes, the opportunity to play aggressive, go after the ball, create some takeaways. So success, again, starts up front for this defense, and this group, at least through training camp in the preseason, obviously they have to carry that momentum over into the regular season when it matters, but this group looks much better equipped to be able to go out there and really make a big impact on Sundays. On the flip side, on the offensive side of the ball, in a very, very young offensive unit as a whole, this is where the experience is. And I know there's been question marks about, Josh Myers' play at center. Is he going to be continue to be the starting center? At the start of training camp was who was going to be at right tackle. But even through some of those questions and some of those unknowns, this unit played really, really well during the preseason. During the first 2 preseason games, Jordan Love had 19 dropbacks. He was pressured on just 2 of them. Didn't take a quarterback hit either. Didn't take a sack. Against Seattle in the final game, again, wasn't hit at all. Wasn't sacked at all. And then as a group, the Green Bay running backs behind the Packers offensive line averaged 4.6 yards per rush, which for some context would have ranked as the 11th best in football last season. So again, success starts in the trenches. Football's changed a lot over the years, but ultimately games are still won and lost up front. If the Packers can't get the run game going, and this offense, this young offense with Jordan Love, first-time starter, young pass catchers, is in predictable passing situations, that's probably not going to end well. If Jordan Love, again, first-time starters under constant duress in the passing game, it's probably not going to end well. So success in these areas is critical for Green Bay. But again, they are set up well, again, on paper and based on what we saw this summer, to be very good in the trenches, which is going to be an important aspect to success this season. Reason number 2 to be optimistic, the running back position. The Packers should have one of the best running back duos in football behind Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones led the NFL in yards per rush last season among qualified running backs with 5.3 yards per carry. A.J. Dillon, meanwhile, the Packers are going to need him to have a bounce-back season. Matt LaFleur has talked about, one thing that they've really been emphasizing with him is to run with a lower pad level, use that size that he has to his advantage. And then along with what both of these guys bring to the run game, both are able to impact the passing game as well, whether that's out of the backfield or whether that's lining up in the slot. Now, I just mentioned when talking about the offensive line why the run game is so important. Again, keep the offense out of predictable passing situations, put them in second and short, third and shorts, where really the entire playbook at that point opens up for Matt LaFleur. At that point, the defense is playing on its heels, keeps them off balance, keeps them guessing, and again, the advantage is going to be in the offense's hands in those situations. And also, the run game is just a really important part of the Matt LaFleur system. Having that run-pass mix, being able to rely on effective play action. All of that are core elements of what this Matt LaFleur offense wants to accomplish. And like I just said with the offensive line, the Packers are positioned well with the running backs they have to be able to be successful in those areas. It's difficult to envision a scenario where the offense is finding success and it doesn't involve Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon making plays in the ground game. So running backs, another reason to be optimistic. Third reason, the speed and versatility of this offense coupled with Matt LaFleur as a play caller. The skill position that the Packers have may be experience, but they got speed and they got versatility. I know in the practices I was watching, to a degree, it was just a lot of the movement and mixing and matching we saw was in part just to get guys the reps that they need throughout practice. But man, between the running backs being able to play in the backfield in the slot, the tight ends, inline slot, even out wide with Luke Musgrave, the receivers able to play from the boundary, from the slot, just felt like there was a limitless combination that Matt LaFleur had at his disposal in terms of personnel groupings that he could put out onto the football field. Christian Watson, Jayden Reed can run sub 4.4 40s. Romeo Doubs, not a burner like those two, so to say, but a very, very good route runner. Matt LaFleur said that he doesn't think there's a route that he cannot run. Luke Musgrave, Ben Sims, who the Packers just picked up, were two of the fastest tight ends in this year's draft class in what was a very, very deep and athletic draft class. Tucker Kraft, again, no slouch either in that category, posted an elite relative athletic score. So there's tons of speed, tons of athleticism throughout those position groups. And what this means for the Packers, what this means for Matt LaFleur, is the ability to achieve what he calls the illusion of complexity. And I'm sure that's a term, a phrase that many have heard Matt LaFleur utilize. And in short, what that means is keeping defenses guessing and off balance. And to do that, it's by being able to run a variety of plays from just a few personnel groupings, and that's able to help the offense then create mismatches, which we've seen throughout training camp. That ability to move players around, the defense not able to substitute, players able to take on a wide variety of responsibilities. That creates mismatches. That's how you get Christian Watson in practice matched up on his games. That's how you get Jayden Reed matched up on a linebacker. And when you have that aspect working and working well, the scheme shoulders some of the playmaking burden. It takes some of that burden off of Jordan Love's shoulders because guys are in favorable one-on-one matchups. Guys are in space, hopefully creating easier opportunities for Love to then take advantage of. So that speed, that versatility, Matt LaFleur's ability to maximize that as a play caller, absolutely a reason to be excited about this 2023 Packers team. Another reason to be optimistic, Jordan Love. He can go out and win this team football games. We learned that this preseason. We learned that in training camp. Now, does that mean he's going to every time? Of course not. Does that mean there won't be ups and downs? Of course not. There's going to be growing pains. Absolutely. I mean, he's a first-time starting quarterback. However, he's shown the ability, again, throughout practice, throughout the preseason, that he can lead this team to victory. Matt LaFleur has stressed over and over and over again this offseason the importance of Love getting the process right. And the process is really everything from the moment he steps into the huddle to the moment that the ball leaves his hands. And the thought process is if the process is done correctly, if the process is done consistently, the results are going to follow. And the results have been following for Love. He looks very, very comfortable with that aspect, that quarterback process before the ball actually leaves his hands, everything that leads up to it. He's done well knowing when to, try to push the ball downfield, when to try to fit it into a tight window, and then knowing when to hold on to it and continue to go through his progressions and take what the defense gives him. He's also shown that he can throw guys open. He has excellent pocket awareness. We really, really saw that in the Seattle game. He has the ability to buy time and create opportunities. Now, when he's buying time and he has created those opportunities, he's not always able to take advantage. Again, throwing on the run, downfield accuracy are areas that he's going to have to continue to prove upon. But the fact that as a first-time starter, he's recognizing that and able to try to take advantage of it is a good sign in its own. And then also, when there's pressure, when the pockets collapse, and he looks very, very calm and cool in those situations. You add all of that together, and you have a recipe for someone who can be a successful quarterback. Now, again, doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sailing all the time. There's going to be those growing pains, as I mentioned, but you can see that the pieces of the puzzle are there for Love to find success, and ultimately, if done consistently, it's going to help this team win football games. Two more. Rich Bisaccia. The addition of Bisaccia to this coaching staff in 2022 didn't only improve the play of the special teams unit, but it shifted the Packers' organizational perspective on special teams, something that very much seemed neglected for a long time. The old adage, you get what you emphasize. Well, based on the on-field performance in previous years, it didn't look like the Packers were very much emphasizing special teams. And what I mean by organizational shift is, like I said, special teams very much seem like an afterthought. If the Packers are bringing in players in free agency, it was, what do you do on offense? What do you do on defense? And then, all right, we'll try to find you a role on special teams. But the Packers have brought in a number of special team specific additions to this team over the last year. Dallin Levitt, Keyshawn Nixon, Zane Anderson, who they just claimed on waivers, Rudy Ford. And I know guys like Ford, Nixon have taken on these on defense, but when they were originally brought here, it was to contribute on special teams. And so there's been that shift from Brian Gutekunst from the personnel department, how that phase of the game is viewed. In Rich Goslin's annual special teams rankings, Green Bay finished last season ranked 22nd. And again, that on its own, that's nothing to write home about. However, it's a far cry from 32nd, which they finished in 2021. And they had finished there, I think, 2 or 3 other times over the last decade, along with a 28th ranking, a 29th. Like, this has been for a decade plus a bottom of the NFL special teams unit. So 22nd in the first season seemed like a big jump. Also, I think it's important to note, this group, if we recall last season on special teams, they still went through some growing pains, under a new coordinator. But by the end of the year, I think that this was a unit that was playing much better than the 22nd ranked unit as well. So as we look ahead to this group in 2023, they have a rookie kicker. They have a first-year holder. There's going to be some ups and downs again that comes with relying on a rookie heavily in that capacity. But the collective special teams unit, the punt coverage, kick coverage, field goal block unit, all those other aspects of it, now in year 2 under Rich Bisaccia, again, it's just like on offense. It's just like in defense. The coach or the coordinator, has his system in play. He's able to go deeper into what his playbook is. Guys are more comfortable with their responsibilities. That in itself can lead to a jump in production in that second season just from those outside aspects of it. But for that reason, for the players that they've assembled and just Bisaccia's ability as a coordinator, this group looks like it can take a jump forward in their second season under Bisaccia and potentially be a possible strength for this Packers team, which very, very odd to say. Lastly, the cornerback room. This room's filled with playmakers, plain and simple. On the boundary, you got Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, both of whom have a knack for making big-time plays in big-time moments. There's a stat from Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated that he was able to find there are only 3 players in the NFL last season who had 4 interceptions in the fourth quarter, and Alexander and Douglas were 2 of them. Packers got Keyshawn Nixon in the slot where he looks very comfortable, brings a physical presence to that position, and then Carrington Valentine had an excellent summer really his showcasing his ability to make plays on the ball, whether it's interceptions, pass breakups, has good length, good athleticism. Again, all of that was on display. And then Eric Stokes, he's eventually going to be back in the mix as well once he's off the PUP list. Going back to last season, not just the secondary, but the defense as a whole was underperforming. When they started to find their stride, in the secondary specifically, we saw Joe Barry playing a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 6, and Alexander was able to switch sides of the field. Now, I want to add an important distinction there. He was not following a receiver. If the opponent broke the huddle, and we'll use the Vikings for example, if they broke the huddle and Justin Jefferson went to the left side of the field, Jair went to the left side. However, if Jefferson was sent in motion pre-snap, Jair was not following him. He was just following him to start out at the beginning of the play. But all of that helped this group be put in a better position to make plays on the ball. And that did lead to takeaways, led to turnovers, which was a huge reason for this defense's late season success and the team success as a whole. Obviously, more turnovers are incredibly beneficial to an offense. Now, the Joe Barry defense, it's predicated on playing zone. So guys like Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, who are probably more comfortable in man, this isn't going to be a man-heavy unit. Like that shouldn't be our expectation. With that said, just because you play zone doesn't mean you have to play soft zone coverage either. So what we really want to see more, and this again comes from the coaching staff more than the players, but timely adjustments. I just went through some of the adjustments that they made last season. Jair being able to move around out of the huddle, covered more cover 2, more cover 6, and not surprisingly, it led to more takeaways for this unit. But it took too long for this defense to get to that point where those fairly significant changes were being made. So obviously that's going to be a big part of their success this season, is taking advantage, being more timely in the moves that need to be made. One encouraging aspect from this summer, the practices anyways that we saw, was the Packer cornerbacks did look to be challenging the receivers a bit more at the line of scrimmage. And this goes in line with what looks like could be, again, emphasize on could be, we have to see it take place in the regular season, a defense that does a little bit more of the dictating, something I've talked about often on here. They were challenging the receivers more. We've seen a lot more stunts and twists from the interior defensive line. We've seen more blitzing from the linebacker position. Hopefully, this is a more aggressive unit, and they should be able to play that way because they have the playmakers that they do at the cornerback position. Trust those guys on the back end in that secondary to be able to hold their own in man coverage if that's what's dictated on that play. And then I'm going to bounce back to turnovers real quick. They're a volatile stat. It's really tough to predict, from one year to the next, or even the first half of the season to the second half of the season, what's going to happen in that regard. However, with a young offense, winning the turnover battle is a must for the Packers. It obviously gives Jordan Love in this offense extra possessions, keeps points off the board from the opponent, and it at times is going to give Jordan Love in this offense good starting field position as well. So that's going to be a really important aspect. And the Packers, again, they have the guys, they have the players at this position group to be able to go out there and win the turnover battle. Of course, it's dependent on what happens with Jordan Love and the offense, but they have the guys to be able to make plays in that aspect of the game. We've seen them do it. They have the ability to do so. So again, another reason to be optimistic about this Packers team. So there you have it, my friends. 6 reasons to be excited about the upcoming Packers season. As always, hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel, and you can find all my work over at Packers Wire. So until next time, friends, take care, stay safe, and as always, go Pack Go.